To be the most watched event in boxing history. The Iron Horse.
I must break you.
What's going on, guys, and welcome to my ranking of the Rocky franchise, one of the best and most awesome movie franchises of all time, and one of the most interesting to talk about, really. This franchise is just such a marvel to talk about because of how successful it is and all the peaks and valleys it went through, and the fact that it's bookended by two of the greatest movies that are ever made, in my opinion. So let's get on to it. The reason I decided to rank the Rocky franchise, usually I don't do a ranking until after I have reviewed all the movies, which I probably will do close to when Creed 2 decides to come out, but I watched these movies when I was sick on the couch, basically bedridden for about a week and a half back in December. Had such a good time revisiting these movies that I just wanted to share that good time with you guys. So all you Rocky fans, let's talk about some Rocky. Coming in at number 7, the bottom of the barrel, but still a movie that I actually enjoy, which is going to be controversial because people fucking hate this movie, Rocky 5. Rocky 5 is pretty much, I think, everybody's bottom of the list. Now, I still have entertainment value with this movie. I still think there's good things about it. Part of it's because I grew up in an era where Rocky 5 wasn't the last Rocky movie. I actually didn't even watch this franchise until after Rocky Balboa came out. So the fact that Rocky 5 was the end of the franchise, I think, soured it for most people that kind of grew up watching these movies. But the fact that I already had the next chapter, Rocky Balboa, kind of lessened the blow of some of the problems with Rocky 5. But it's just a weird movie because it's got the 90s hip-hop soundtrack that doesn't quite work. They really, even though it's a good idea to try to get back to the roots of the first two movies, they really shove it into this movie. They really just rip Rocky down from his riches and put him in the streets of Philadelphia, and it just doesn't quite feel like a good transition. It just feels like it's almost like a car accident that you get into. Whenever you watch this movie and you get to the first 15 minutes, it's just like a punch to the balls as a Rocky fan. Like, what the hell is happening? You're really gonna take everything that Rocky worked himself for away from him and put him right back where he started? Once you get past that initial blow to the nuts, it's actually a good little story and a good little chapter of the character of Rocky. You get this confrontation between him and his son, where his son feels neglected, which is a good storyline to go with. Somewhat decently executed in this. You get the character of Tommy Gunn, where Rocky, now that he's unable to box because of the brain damage he got in Rocky 4 fighting Drago, he has to train, and he trains this new guy, and it goes sour, and he ends up having to fight him in a street fight, which is one of the coolest parts of this franchise, in my opinion. Some people disagree with that, but just a lot of problems in this movie that felt forced. So I still enjoy Rocky 5, but it is the least good movie in this franchise, definitely. So number 7, Rocky 5. Number 6 is going to be Rocky 3. Ton of people are going to freak out because I put it so low, but from Rocky 3 to the top, these are all movies that I really enjoy. And I really enjoy Rocky 5 too, so really there's not a bad movie in my opinion in this entire list, but from Rocky 3, like Rocky 5's here, Rocky 3 and the rest of the movies are like up here. So I enjoy this movie very much. It's not a knock to put it this low. Reasons why is because it's the first movie in the era of Rocky movies that kind of go into the ridiculous, cheap entertainment value Rocky movies. It gets away from the drama and the Oscar-worthy type stuff that made Rocky, and it's kind of gotten back to a degree. And the whole thing with him and Mr. T, it's great entertainment. It's fun as hell to watch. You got the soundtrack, you know, Eye of the Tiger. The shit is one of the songs that you cannot turn the radio on and hear it at least once a day, and it's because of this movie. Pure entertainment factor, but it's goofy as hell. It's schlocky as hell, and it's 80s as hell. When you watch this movie, I mean, you got scenes where Apollo Creed and Rocky are jumping in slow motion and giving each other hugs on the beach in little 80s man shorts. I mean, it doesn't get more 80s than Rocky 3. For some people, they love it. For me, it's a little bit goofy and weird to look at. But story-wise, it's cool to see Rocky take on one of, at the time, the scariest villain that had come along in the Rocky franchise. It was cool to see Apollo Creed team up with Rocky Balboa to take down this guy. And just the whole friendship and the turn of the relationship between Apollo Creed and Rocky, to me, is the greatest achievement of Rocky 3. So, very fun movie, just not one that I think is as good as the ones above it. That's why it's at number 6. Number 5 is going to be Rocky 2. Rocky 2 is an interesting sequel because I think the first third or so of the movie, maybe even the first half, feels like the stereotypical forced sequel. You get the end of Rocky, they have their fight, Rocky loses, everybody handshakes, walks away. The victory is not the fact that he lost, the victory is that he made it through the fight, he proved everybody wrong, he gets Adrian, all that good stuff. We'll get into that more in a minute. But whenever the Rocky 2 starts, suddenly all that shit is reversed and Apollo Creed cannot sleep until he fights Rocky Balboa again, which is a complete ass backwards change from where he was at the end of Rocky, just for the sake of pushing a sequel. So that, all of the commercial shooting and shit like that he does when he's dressed up like a Flintstone and everything, it feels so weird and schlocky as like a forced sequel. Once you get past that, when you get to the point whenever they're actually building up to the fight again, whenever Rocky agrees, whenever, especially whenever Adrian ends up in the hospital, all of that stuff is great. Like, that is on par with the first Rocky to me. The emotions, the drama, the acting by Sylvester Stallone, and even up to the actual fight whenever they're just going blow for blow and finally Rocky walks away the winner. I mean, all that stuff, you know, Adrian, I did it! All that stuff is just pure gold and awesome. So, even though I still enjoy the first half of this movie brings it down all the way to number 5 for me. Number 4 is going to be another controversial pick, Rocky Balboa. Now, don't get me wrong, this movie is great. This movie is a movie that everybody that loves the Rocky franchise expected to be horrible, because this was not only at a time when you're coming off Rocky 5, which already felt like a forced sequel because Rocky 4 was, you know, a good enough ending, but whenever you get to Rocky 5 and piss so many people off, now you're going to do another one so many years later. It's at a point in Stallone's career where he was basically non-existent in Hollywood. You saw him pop up in like a straight-to-DVD movie once in a while. And whenever this movie came out, it shocked critics, it shocked fans at how fucking good it was. Like, it just brought the Rocky franchise back. And Rocky Balboa has some of the greatest written moments in the entire franchise. The whole speech that Rocky gives to his son outside the restaurant about how life beats you down, but you got to keep moving forward. I could put that on a poster or a tattoo. It is so good. Like, that is genuinely gold Rocky moments. The fact that Sylvester Stallone directed this movie is just beautiful. He directed most of these movies, honestly, but the fact that he wrote the comeback story. Where this movie falters a little bit for me is that I don't like the guy that he fights, Mason Dixon. They try to do this storyline where he's kind of in the same situation as Rocky, trying to prove himself, trying to get all the haters off of his back. But he's such an arrogant fuckhead in the movie that I can't get behind his story. If they had tailored down his personality and made him a genuinely like good guy and an entertaining guy to watch, this would probably have been up 1 or 2 spaces. But the fact that I hate that character so much because of what an arrogant asshole he is, even though his story is supposed to be like a mirror image of Rocky's story, it brings the movie down slightly for me because I know how it's gonna end. Like, when you watch this movie, it's not a spoiler alert, you know if Rocky wins this fight, it's pure bullshit. So the fact that they went the realistic route to give this guy his victory, it sours the movie slightly for me that they made him such an unlikable character, in my opinion. But everything else aside from that, everything up to that character, Mason Dixon, is great. So this is a full-on recommend for that movie. It's just that one thing that leads it a little bit lower than the 3 that I have above it that I love. Number 3 is Rocky 4. Rocky 4 is not my favorite of this franchise, obviously, since it's number 3, but it is the one that I watch the most. Rocky 4 is the most entertaining of the Rocky franchise. To me, it's the more entertaining cousin of Rocky 3. You have the best villain in the entire Rocky franchise of Ivan Drago, played by Dolph Lundgren. He's scary, he's intimidating. He should basically murder everybody he gets into the ring with, and Rocky's the guy that says, fuck you, I'm gonna take this guy down. Beautiful. You get a lot of genuinely good moments with Rocky, especially with the death of Apollo Creed. Very emotional stuff, and a great story end for the Apollo Creed character. The fact that he wanted to die in the ring. He could not stand being a retired ex-champion. He wanted to go out on top or go out in a big way. Beautiful stuff, and it goes into a nice little crescendo with Creed. I love this movie. The soundtrack's one of the greatest soundtracks of all time. Hearts on Fire, I mean, gotta love it. Everything about this movie I enjoy the fuck out of. It is a little bit schlocky though. I mean, you got Rocky taking on the Cold War single-handedly. That stuff is very heavy-handed. It's entertaining as hell. It does not detract from the entertainment value of this movie, but it is a little bit schlocky. We can admit that and still be Rocky fans. So, love this movie to death. Like I said, it's probably the one I rewatch the most for sure. It's the most entertaining for me, one of the most memorable. It's most people's favorites, if they want to be honest, but I have two movies that I think are a little bit better. So moving up to number 2, now we have the original Rocky and we have Creed, the bookends of this franchise. You got where it all started, the Oscar-winning Rocky, the movie that gave Sylvester Stallone his career, and you have Creed, the comeback story that nobody expected to come along. Which one is number 2? It's gonna be Creed. Creed was a huge surprise for me. Just like Rocky Balboa, this was a movie that when people were talking about it coming out, the same exact reaction. Everybody's like, this is gonna suck. You're gonna do a side story about Apollo Creed's long lost son coming in to fight and Rocky's gonna train him? Just leave it at Rocky Balboa. That's a great ending. You get to Creed, you give it to the director Ryan Coogler, you get the great Michael B. Jordan in there, you insert Sylvester Stallone and his greatest performance of his fucking career, and you have a movie that challenges Rocky for the greatest of this franchise. Creed is awesome. It has all of the great emotional and perfect elements that made Rocky great about this underdog. Michael B. Jordan as Adonis Creed's a very interesting character, a very complicated character, just like Rocky was. Rocky as a character is such a fascinating person to watch in this movie because of all the struggles he goes through. And Sylvester Stallone putting on is just his Oscar-nominated performance that I still think he should have won for. Creed is just awesome. It's an achievement. It brings the Rocky franchise all the way back up to the Oscar caliber it was back in the 70s when the first one came out. Huge achievement. Can't say anything negative about this movie. I love it to death. I watched it probably 3 or 4 times since it came out. I love it. Creed is badass. But there's one movie that's better, and that's the original Rocky. The original Rocky is my number 1 for so many reasons. This movie is just one of the greatest movies of all time. I mean, it's a sports movie. It's a drama. It's a love story, it's an underdog story, both on Sylvester Stallone's part and Rocky Balboa's part. When you find out about the story that made this movie, it makes it even more fascinating that Sylvester Stallone was homeless, living in LA, trying to make it with just his dog on the streets, and he has this script that he's writing, and he finally gets somebody to buy it, but then even though he's getting handed all this money to have this script, his only stipulation is, I want to play Rocky, and if you don't let me play Rocky, give me my script back, I'm going back to the street corner. All of that stuff is just fascinating. But when you get to the movie, man, talk about one of the greatest characters of all time in Rocky Balboa. I mean, throughout this entire franchise, we just get to see Rocky in every single stage of his life, every single conflict that he goes through with his marriage, his son, his own vitality, the loss of people in his life. I mean, it's just one of the most well-rounded and fascinating characters in movie history, and there's just no denying it. Rocky is awesome. It's the perfect sports movie. One of, if not the greatest, fighting movies of all time. I got a huge soft spot for Warrior. I love Warrior so much. It might be better than Rocky to me. I don't know. But Rocky is just awesome. You get the whole thing with the underdog story of trying to take down the world champion, the world champion's arrogance, trying to just take out some dude who's a known name to kind of rejuvenate his career a little bit. You get Rocky, the guy off the streets who's going to be the one to do it, who's working for the mob as an enforcer and is finally trying to get the respect that he wants and get people behind him like Mickey to get him into the ring and turn him into the fighter he can be. You get the whole thing, the origin of his love and relationship with Adrian. That's all beautiful stuff, and it's just one of the most biggest achievements as far as screenwriting, directing, acting by Stallone and everybody else. I love Rocky. So Rocky, undeniably for me, is the best in this franchise in a long string of awesome movies. One of the best franchises of all time. One of my favorite franchises of all time. I love revisiting these movies. And hopefully you enjoyed revisiting them with me too. Put your guys' ranking down below for the Rocky franchise. And keep an eye out because sometime around when Creed 2 is getting ready to come out, I probably will review these movies. So don't hold me to it anytime soon, but keep an eye out for that. Please like and share this video, guys. Hit that subscribe button if you're not already a subscriber. Hit that share button if you want to check out some social media links. Check out Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, my Patreon page, a great way to give back to this channel and get awesome exclusive content for your eyes only if you decide to become a patron, and my Spreadshirt store, which has got 4 designs up right now for t-shirts, hoodies, water bottles, tote bags, all that cool stuff, and there will be more coming. So check that out, guys, and if you want to check out some more of my videos, you can check out a few more by clicking right over here.